This is. Hello.
Hey peeps, Max Mox here, and today, if you guys asked if you want to see how to build my steam locomotive, I'm just going to come here and disassemble a steam engine. As you can see, it's a little big. I'm going to have to get it to my studio to, take it apart and show you how it's built and then put it back together. So yeah, let's get to the studio. Stop.
Okay, so here we are, ready to do the disassembly of the locomotive in this much larger space with a crane. I'm just gonna move out of the way. Move our main engine out of the way because we have to look at our power. So this is all powered from the tender, as you can see. Just pick up the crane, as you can see. It's got power functions. So it's very simple, but works. IR receivers poking out there. You can remove the coal load. Look in, there's where the wires are. Then back here, if I just take this brick separator and flip these off, here is the bat box. Now down there, it's actually riding on these CMF stands. I don't even know that I had enough of these for this build, but apparently I did, and then some. Like literally, I have a ton of these, and I don't even buy CMFs. But it's just floating in there, so once I remove these 4 panels, it'll all just come out. And this build does use a little bit of flex tubes, as you can see on the back. Also, for the couplers, instead of using those big buffers, it uses a something that looks more like a knuckle coupler, using that piece. And it looks like it has a little coupler cut bar. So yeah. Now let's move on to the engine because that's the part everybody wants to see. So first of all, I have to deassemble it. Gonna lift the boiler off. It's a little hard. I designed this really well. There we go. Then the side frames, which I just broke the one because it happens. Gonna move the tender out of the way. The cab. This piece right here. Then the trailing truck. And the pilot. So as you can see, this is a very simple system. I use this bar connected right here on the drive wheels. And as it goes, see these 2 rods, slides through. So when I put that back in, nope, it slides, which makes it look far more realistic and is actually far smoother to let run, especially around curves and that, where it kind of buckles a bit. You may also notice, if I just stick it out of the ground right here, something's odd with the wheel set. When I turn it, the 2 are not equal. They're quartered, which means, as you can see, the one side is up, so when I flip it around, the other, oops, hit it. Anyways, one side is up, the other side is kind of moved back. That's how I quartered the wheel, so when it's rolling, it allows it to roll a lot smoother. Plus, it's more realistic, because, you don't have the rods at the bottom, or one at the bottom, one at the top, because you need to build up that rolling. It's with steam pistons, so then when one's at the end, the other one's in the center, so it's trying to push, like they're trying to push each other. So they're imbalanced, but they're actually very balanced. And right here, this is how the pistons are connected, so it's like a casting of sorts, and you gotta put a little brick on top of that because it's very weak. Gotta make it strong. Now, when building an 060, you could have these pushed back a lot farther, and these bars would be more back here as opposed to being up here, but this is a mainline locomotive, so you don't want your bars at the back. And that also the same goes for an 040 if you'd have the bars back there, but this is for mainline service. You can also see here for the front truck, I did that same thing that I did with the back. I installed a little plow underneath so it's more realistic. These right here are a lot closer than normal, and I have to use these ugly tan pins because I had to let this go through. This is what connects this to this on the underside. So when I connect these pins, as you can see, that allows it to move about, which allows it to go around curves. Now the back, you may have also noticed with the tender, instead of having a coupler, instead of having a coupler such as what you'd see on the Lego models, such as Emerald Knight, I use this drawbar. I also use a regular wheel instead of, like on the Emerald Knight, these smaller drive wheels. That's because this wheel is sort of like as if it had like roller bearings. It's very, very smooth. So what I'm going to want to do is, now you're going to probably want to do the more Emerald Knight style one. This, I didn't have the parts. So, one connection pin, slide that together. And I have a little brick there to stop it from going any higher. And not only does it connect perfectly, it also gives it a little bit of suspension when going around curves. Not much, but some. Alright, just going to move back the model a bit. Like so. And as you can see, it's already starting to show its form again. Now this is actually smaller than the Emerald Knight engine. I don't have it with me to compare, but gotta take my word for it when you build it. If you want to build it. These are just giving you some ideas about how to build an engine like so. Also do want to point out on the front, I have another cut bar because I cut this piece a while ago for something else, and then I have this, which is two of those hose pieces, and then a 1x4. That's because the Canadian Pacific, they had a really weird step up for like getting onto these, and that's basically what it is. This is the cab. It's a all-weather cab. I'm gonna move this back a little farther. All-weather cab. I'll just pop off the roof. When you're building an engine, you want to make sure the roof of the cab can be taken off, because that allows for access for details. So I just have on the back head a whole bunch of details. I also designed the back head so it kind of gives it so it goes straight into the tender. If it was a more conventional American locomotive, you wouldn't have this kind of back head detail. You wouldn't even have the ladder up on the cab. It'd be on the tender of the locomotive. But this was of Canadian design. You can also see, yet again, because I don't have the parts, I had to use cut rods. And I have the steps up. They're connected to the rods because with this, that little pin there, that's where the trailing truck is going to be resting underneath it. So you want it to move so then you could get around sharper curves. Also on the front, even though you don't see it, the fire is there. Have the connecting points for the side areas, and then that top connecting point for the boiler. Now, just gonna connect it on here. You have to get it right there, so the two white parts match up on the underneath. And I'm gonna put this on now. There we go. Now before we get to the boiler, there is one part that needs to be put on first, which are these side frames. There's two of them. They're opposites of each other. They're very, very simple, but they add a lot of detail. Now normally there would be like the printing on it. Now I currently don't even have print for it or stickers. And they also, on this model, because I couldn't really get these on here, properly, I decided to connect them to these. That allows for easier maintenance when I take parts off. So it's set, so I connect them up there, and I'll connect the other side, and they just connect by 2 studs, so they're resting on this side, but they're very well supportive. You can also see it kind of hides some of the details you don't want to see, such as the emptiness of the boiler. So finally, I'll just move that back again, and we look at the boiler itself. Now, it's comprised of a couple of pieces. This is all connected by 1 stud. It is a, I forget what it was. It's part of the superheater. Also, you can see with the faceplate, it's simply connected by these 2 on here, and just hooks up, so the top half right here will hook onto those studs, and there you go. And for these sides, there is clips holding these rods here underneath a sand dome. And if you look on the inside, it's just studs holding these on, like side. It's not building. Very basic terms. So you could do that as long as you have the parts. And then just gonna want to connect it so that top area slides on right here when it does. Sometimes it doesn't because, you know, it's my builds. And if you saw earlier, there's that gray part that holds the thing together. Oh. So just slide it in right there. But of course, knowing me, I'd have issues. If it were you, you probably wouldn't have as much issues. There you go. Oh, that part. These break off a lot. But hey, at least the rest of the thing is a lot more structurally stable. And like I mentioned earlier with that ball joint, just get the tender back, and I'll roll it right next to it, right here. And you could kind of see when the 2 combined, even though it may not have that coupler, this would also help because they're the same height, and also they're the same, like they're supposed to be connected. Now what people don't understand is the coal or oil loads have to be closer to the locomotive, because on the real life engine there is a stoker. Most are hand fired, but this engine has a stoker which puts coal into the firebox. If you had a fireman on a locomotive without a stoker, he'd have to get his shovel, take coal from here, put it in the firebox. And the water, that will just travel through pipes into the boiler. That's why you'd see auxiliaries on mainline engines. So now what this allows you to do is, not only does that give you a standardized connection, it also takes away, so then you know, like if you make auxiliaries that look like old tenders, you can know the difference between what's an auxiliary and what's a tender. Now that's for serious small railroaders, and also a lug or 2, but you know, most people might want to. So yeah, that pretty much wraps it up. Besides, you know, not having the details, if you look up this engine, which you can probably find on YouTube videos, and if you visit Steamtown National Historic Site, you'll also see it on display, currently awaiting for its restoration. It's a very nice locomotive. It was a great hauler when it was last running back pre-2009, and it'll eventually be back. And just saying, it's pretty strong. When it gets up to speed, it's actually really strong. So yeah, that's it for this video. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you all next time. Goodbye.